Following my workshop guide again, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to go ahead and remove the spark plugs because I have not done that. And then I'm going to remove the oil pumps from the side, this one and the one on bank one. Went ahead and move this to top dead center first and put the pin in there before removing anything else. Okay, now for the fun part. So bank one over here, I'm just going to use this pick tool and puncture the middle of it. The outer edges, as you'll see here in a second, are metal, so that's why you have to come in from the middle. And I'm just going to pry it out. Just work it around. Okay, so you can see there is metal everywhere but the middle. So the reason you want to pry these out is so you can see what direction the ends of your camshaft are at. So that's the top one for the intake cam. Let me get the bottom one for the exhaust cam. Okay, so you can see that these are both lined up, and it is hard to tell here, but this half circle on the left is actually smaller than the one on the right. I don't know if you can see that. Let me try to zoom in. So you can see that it's not exactly centered. That one is a little bit bigger, and the same down here. So let me show you what the other side looks like right now. All right, so this is bank two. Let me pry these off. All right, so bank two, these are also both vertical, but you can see the slightly smaller half is over on the right. They say to disassemble the correct side, this smaller half needs to be pointing towards the cam cover, and this is pointing towards the cam. Well, it is the cam, but it's pointing towards the middle of the engine instead of towards the cover. So that means that it is set up correctly for bank one. So bank one, smaller portion is pointing this way. So in order to do the other bank, if you want to do that, you just remove this pin, turn this 360 degrees one more time, and it'll be the opposite. All right, so this picture makes it a little more clear from the manual. It's a little easier to see that the half circles on the top are smaller and they are facing the cam cover in this picture. There's an easy pry point underneath and right here on top to just pry back and forth to get this thing loose. Whew. Man, that thing is dirty. You're gonna, of course, want to make sure you change this O-ring and the bolts when we put it back on. Oh, and just to show you here, it should say, so mine actually has 1 through 3 at the top and 4 through 6 on the bottom, because on some engines this can go on either side, and the way you mount it makes it spin in the right direction. So mine was oriented like this with 1 through 3 on the top because it is bank one. I'm gonna pull this cap off the same way. For this one I had to work a hole big enough to get a screwdriver in, pry it out so we can get to this nut. Now we're supposed to use this tool that came in the kit that I got from eBay. Of course, links in the description. I mean, Amazon, sorry. Yeah, we're gonna see how it works. This end is supposed to go in here somewhere, and that end is supposed to rest against the wall so that this one won't rotate when we turn it, I guess. But, oh, I see, yeah. So that nut shape, it's kind of got a collar on it behind that nut that you can see. Cool. I don't know if you can see this, but it doesn't quite fit on that way, and if I turn it this way, it doesn't quite have the range to lock on that way, and the manual says If that's the case, then you just have to turn the crank a little bit more until it will line up. All right, guys, Aaron from the future here. We have made mistakes, we have learned. So I want to teach you through my failures. So in just a minute, you're gonna see how I removed the bolt from up here and kind of screwed some things up along the way. I spoke with Jake Raby and he gave me some advice. The first piece of advice was to throw away the manual. So let me tell you the way he does this and what he suggested to me to remove the cam cover and things in the order that he did it. And then I'll show you the way the manual does it and you'll probably see why his is better. So what he recommends is to put this at top dead center, lock the pin in. And as you'll see, I explain how there are two different top dead centers, one for each side of the bank. And according to Jake, it does not matter. Just put it in a top dead center because this makes sense because we're gonna be removing both sets of cams and it's not like you can remove one cam and then rotate it 360 degrees because the chain is gonna be all loose. So put it in top dead center. Then remove the chain tensioners, which we have not removed yet, after removing this part. And he said, you just save this bolt for last. So after you get the cam out, just use an impact wrench to get the bolt out of here. And we do not need to use that special Porsche tool down there. He said you only really need that for installing, not removing. So to recap, do not do what I'm about to do and take this bolt out yet because, well, you'll see why shortly. So I'll join you in a minute. So I'm not really exactly sure why they tell you to put it at top dead center a specific way if you are removing one, if you can't leave it at top dead center anyway, and we have to rotate this some more. If you understand why that is, please let us know very clearly in the comments below. See, this is the picture in the manual. And it says right here, if necessary, position the contact block by undoing and tightening the screw. If the special tool cannot be positioned on the hexagon of the adapter in this way, the engine must be turned further in the direction of rotation at the belt pulley of the crankshaft until the contact block comes into contact with the central screw of the cylinder head cover, ready for unscrewing. Okay, I just read that a bunch of times, and this part here is what they're calling the contact block. So the first suggestion they had is unscrewing this screw, I guess. And then placing this on here. Okay, so that way we can make it line up here. But I'm not sure how that helps because we're not gonna be able to screw that back in and have it fit. I don't know, I think I'm gonna leave that in here at top dead center. And maybe I'll just start trying to loosen this thing because since that is supposed to counter it, that tells me that this would spin without a counter. So maybe we can just loosen it up enough until it does fit in here to counter. I don't know, let's try that. So this thing is a 16 millimeter. So let me just very, very gently try to turn it. So I guess this is supposed to be the cam adjuster, so it's not the cam itself. But I'm guessing there's like a sprocket and the chain is attached to it. Yeah. Okay, it's not turning if I apply just a little bit of pressure. Yeah, I'm going back to the thing that makes the most sense is just to turn the whole crank until this piece not only fits in here, but is all the way up against this wall here. So that when I turn that bolt to the left, it is locked in place here and is not going to try to rotate the top. All right, I think that's how it's supposed to look. So what I did is I just held that in place with my left hand, and with my right hand used a 24 millimeter to turn that clockwise until it kind of locked into place here. Now I'm just going to use the 16 millimeter and try to remove that bolt. And for me, this is the position of the pulley once I got it to that spot. So I just have my 16 millimeter socket on the ratchet going through here. And that's freaking tight. I'm gonna get a longer one. All right, let's try this. Let's see what this is doing here. Guess that's working. Yeah. Excellent. All right, so my Boxster M96 engine was not like this. So it's got a big washer on here that is that hex piece. And it's off. Here's what it looks like on the inside. So my question for you home mechanics is, do I rotate it back to top dead center? I don't think so. This is the position of my cams now, so they're like 45 degrees. All right, welcome back. So that was the wrong way to do it. And now, as you can see, I started to turn this to try to get it back to top dead center, since I had to move it a little bit past top dead center to get that bolt out. And as you can see, the three cams that are still attached are turning in the normal time with each other, but this one, now that the bolt is disconnected, does not turn nearly as much because it's not attached anymore. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn this back to top dead center, lock it in place. This one will probably be vertical again. This one will not be, and I'm just gonna have to disassemble it like that. So the reason you want to put it in top dead center before removing the cams is because at top dead center, it is called off lobe. So the lobes of the cams are not actually touching and pressing the lifters down to open the valves. So ideally, top dead center, and then we can remove them. So back at top dead center, this one of course is vertical, this one not so much. Now, while this is tight and locked, I'm going to go ahead and loosen these. I'm not gonna remove them yet. Then I'm gonna remove the chain tensioners, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the bank too. All right, remove these 4 bolts, and this guy obviously sticks up here, so there's only one way that's going back on. Yeah, so note that these 2 little tiny things that look like bolts do not need to be removed. And that's what this guy looks like. Very familiar right there. Huh. It's interesting that this one has a screen on one side, not that side. All right, loosened on both banks. Man, there's some thunder going on outside. The chain tensioner for bank 2 is up top here, and this little piece is in the way of removing it. So I'm just gonna remove these 2 bolts and remove that little bracket. All right, 6mm hex. Got to use one of these so I can fit it in there. Labeling this above bank 2 chain tensioner. This is a 14mm hex bit. Under bank 1, that's a 32mm socket to remove this tensioner. And of course, oil is going to come out, and you'll immediately see that the chain is slack now. Now, for the fun part, going to take the cam cover off. You can see that this is the dividing line where the cam cover is. So all of these bolts around the edge here, these guys, follow it around, remove all of those. And then there's some up the middle here. And just a word of warning from experience, this is going to leak a lot of oil, so have something to catch it. So my valve cover so far, those 4 in the middle, have all been what they call micro encapsulated. So they have the blue threadlock type stuff at the top under the head, and then also it's worn off, but at the bottom typically. And the 4 at the end are also like that. So these are actually the ones that are around the, it's not a bearing under there, but it's a built-in bearing, like a fixed bearing. So that's where the cams rotate around, or rotate inside rather. By my count, there are a total of 20. All right, little rubber mallet, little screwdriver right here. You got this starting to separate. Let some oil drain out. Ta-da! Cover is off. Here are the glorious cams. So yeah, you can see that, well, yeah. So even at top dead center, these lobes are pressing in right there, even though these two are off. So yeah, don't get why top dead center matters. But anyway, we're doing it. This is the inside of the cam cover. And these are the braces or bearings or whatever you want to call it that the cam rides in. These are machines to match the cams, so you can't just swap out cam covers all willy-nilly and stuff. And so the bolts that those 4 there and these 4 here were the micro encapsulated ones. Okay, so more learning is taking place here. Remember how I said that the small ones, when they're to the outside, it means that that bank is at its top dead center? Well, look at the lobes over here, not pressing in, not pressing in, and not pressing in. And the ones on the top are just barely not touching it. These are sticking straight out. And these are not touching it, so none of the lobes are actually pressing on any of the lifters when it is in top dead center for that particular bank. And since it's not at top dead center for bank 1 right now, that's why some of them are still touching. So why has nobody just ever told me that before? I also find it confusing that bank 2 says 1A and bank 1 over on the other side says 1B, but oh well. All right, overall, I think the cams look really good to me, my untrained eye at least. Just want to point out that we have 2 like locating pins here, and then 1 here and 1 up top here on the outside of the head. Same thing for bank 1, except for this bottom one stayed captured in the cam cover when I took it off. The other ones are still here.